In the world where human beings reside everywhere, there is an island, Itogami, more appropriately Demon District, located far from the Japanese mainland where therianthropes, spirits, half-demons, vampires, and even all manner of magical beings persuaded on the brink of extinction are authorized by the government to live for the protection and research purposes. One day on Itogami Island, a very ordinary high school student Kojo is suddenly suspected of being an immortal and most powerful vampire, fourth progenitor. Kojo keeps hiding his vampire self by living his life like a normal high school student. One day, on his way back from school, Kojo suspects being followed by a middle school girl, Yukina, carrying the guitar bag. Kojo tries to fade away his suspicions and go on his way, but Yukina keeps tracking him. While following Kojo, when Yukina comes in front of him, she, in confusion, steps back and calls out Kojo as the fourth progenitor. Kojo starts speaking a different language and poses as a total stranger in order to cover up the fact that he is a vampire. On Kojo's act, Yukina also believes him to be a different person and decides not to trail behind him. A little while later, Yukina is surrounded by two demons, and when Kojo runs to help her, he remains shocked to witness Yukina transforming into an attack mage and punching the demons with great force. One of the demons, a D-type vampire in rage, summons his familiar and tries to bring a fight with her in the middle of the city. Meanwhile, the city's sensors notice the extreme power and clear nearby areas to avoid bloodshed. Yukina brings out her Schneewalzer from the guitar case and fights the vampire to defeat his familiar in no time. Being highly indulged in the fight, when Yukina is about to kill a person, Kojo intervenes and stops Schneewalzer's attack with bare hands. Demons run away while Kojo's real identity as the fourth progenitor reveals to Yukina. After that, Yukina leaves but forgets her wallet, which Kojo finds. The following day, Kojo, through Yukina's ID card, which he finds in her wallet, visits her school in order to return her wallet. At school, he meets Yukina and asks for the treat lunch for returning her wallet. Yukina agrees and at lunch reveals her identity as the Sword Shaman and the former student of the Public Safety Commission, Lion King Organization Training School, High God Forests. She is sent by Lion King Organization to observe Kojo's acts as his existence as the fourth progenitor is nothing less than terror. Hearing this, Kojo explains that he was an ordinary high school student only a few months before, but suddenly the previous Collide Blood, fourth progenitor, chose him as its heir and transferred its powers to him. However, whenever he tries to remember the circumstances in which he met the fourth progenitor, he feels an intense headache and a vision of a girl, Aurora, inside the fire. After the first official meeting at lunch, Yukina becomes friends with Kojo to keep an eye on him and stop any future terror. Some years ago in the Lion King Organization, the Sacred Treaty of Three Progenitors informs Yukina about the sudden appearance of the fourth progenitor. They declare the presence of the fourth progenitor dangerous as it will disrupt the balance created by the already existing three progenitors and bring up a war of massive scale. After giving Yukina a suspected fourth progenitor's picture and a special demon assault spear, Schneestrom Wolfen instructed her to go to Itogami Island and observe Kojo's actions. While observing, if she finds him dangerous to the world, she must eliminate him. In the present, when Kojo, on his way to school, comes out of his apartment building, he remains surprised to find Yukina there. She explains her presence as his observer. She later informs him of her shifting into Kojo's adjacent room, which is actually to keep the proper eye on him. Yukina does not have much stuff and has to go shopping, but she cannot go as she has to observe Kojo the whole time. Kojo offers to go with her shopping after his exam since this way she can shop while observing him. For the exam, Kojo appears at school in front of his 26-year-old English instructor Natsuki, who is an active attack mage and one of the few persons knowing about Kojo's real identity as the fourth progenitor. When Kojo asks her about the Lion King Organization, she gets attentive and informs him that it is the only enemy of Kojo and was created only for this purpose. Later, Kojo brings Yukina to the mart and Yukina excitedly explores daily life things she has never seen on his home island. After shopping, when they return, they encounter Kojo's little sister Nagisa, a middle schooler and Yukina's fellow and friend. Since Yukina has recently shifted, she invites her to her apartment for food. At Kojo's place, he reveals to Yukina that he wishes to eliminate criminals and the corrupt system with his fourth progenitor power, but since he cannot do it alone, he continues living his life as an ordinary human. After dinner, Kojo goes out to the convenience store and Yukina accompanies him. While they are out, they hear an explosion done by a giant familiar and its master. Yukina sends Kojo back home since his deeds will reveal his identity, and she goes to fight the familiar. At the explosion site, she encounters one of the West European church-hunting vampires, Rudolph, and engages in combat with him. Yukina, with her Shistrom, exhibits amazing speed and power against Rudolph in the fight, but with his sharp shot, Rudolph pushes Yukina and injures her. Rudolph summons his familiar and brings a heavy attack on Yukina. When Yukina is about to lose the fight and die, Kojo appears from nowhere and intervenes to push the familiar away. Rudolph suspects Kojo as the fourth progenitor. He orders his familiar to deliver a heavy shot on him. As familiar's attack overpowers Kojo, he gets injured and loses his blood. In a moment, he can't control his power and screams like crazy, exhibiting enormous power. The following morning, the island comes to know about the last night's explosion, which caused massive destruction. On their way to school, Yukina asks Kojo about the power he exhibited in the fight last night, which made Rudolph and his familiar run away. Kojo explains that despite having the fourth progenitor's powers, he cannot control his familiars because he never consumed human blood as a vampire. After hearing this, instead of eliminating Kojo by seeing him as a danger, Yukina instructs him to execute a way to control his powers. At school, Natsuki asks Kojo and Yukina about last night's incident and informs them that 7 such explosions happened this month. Natsuki also warns Kojo of dangers and instructs him not to roam late at night. After meeting with Natsuki, Yukina informs Kojo about Lotharingia Orthodox Church's involvement in the last night incident. In order to catch Rudolph and his homunculus familiar, they have to find his hideout. Since Kojo cannot get the island's search data, he approaches his friend Asagi, who is a programmer in the island's management corporation. Asagi, using his resources, searches the business offices operated out of Lotharingia and finds Rudolph's research location. Following Lotharingia's research company, when Kojo and Yukina arrive there, they remain shocked to see homunculus enclosed in capsules for test samples. Just then, Rudolph's familiar approaches them and instructs them to leave the island as the island of transient Earth floats over intersections of dragon veins in the southern sea, and once its core stone is lost, it will collapse. Rudolph also appears and defines his goal, to find the eternal treasure revered as that core stone. Kojo screams at Rudolph as he implants a familiar in a little girl, Astarte, and uses her for his own purposes without caring about her life. Kojo, enraged, exhibits powers while Rudolph orders Astarte to fight against him. When Kojo delivers a punch with his strength, he easily gets pushed by Astarte because of the power it copied from Yukina in the last night's battle. With Kojo being injured, Rudolph himself comes into a fight and tries to kill Yukina with his giant axe. To save Yukina, Kojo takes the attack on him, resulting in him dying on the spot. Leaving Yukina to moan about Kojo's death, Rudolph and Astarte then leave to accomplish their goal. Elsewhere in the core island's magical foundation, Asagi, while working, comes to know of the terror attack by Rudolph and Astarte. Kojo's body regenerates and brings him back to life. He learns about the terror attack at the island's magical foundation. In the magical foundation, Rudolph proceeds to the foundation's anchor block by destroying everything coming in his path. Kojo wishes to go and stop him, but since he has no control over his familiars, he cannot beat Rudolph. Hearing this, Yukina offers her blood, and after sucking it, he will be able to summon his familiars. Kojo initially resists, but to save the people of Edogame Island, he sucks Yukina's blood. Rudolph finally approaches his target, which comes up to be a precious relic, an eternal treasure stolen from the Church of Lotharingia. Taking the treasure back from the island's magical foundation, the island will perish. Rudolph wants to do this because years ago, when the island was created, to make the island's building strong, the saint of Lotharingia Church was arrested and his magical hand relic was used for this purpose. This act was unforgivable, and now he will take Lotharingia's relic back to punish the island for his deed. Kojo and Yukina arrive there, engage in combat with Rudolph and Astarte to stop them. Kojo, after sucking blood, is finally able to summon his familiar and brings a tough fight against Rudolph, but Astarte comes forward and saves him. Even with his power, Kojo can't break Astarte's barrier. Astarte's barrier was made by Yukina's Shistrom. Thus, to defeat her, Yukina fights with the actual power she exhibits. Yukina finally breaks Astarte's barrier and defeats her. She also breaks Rudolph's shield and with the help of Kojo beats him. In an effort to perish the island where many people reside, Rudolph faces defeat. Kojo then sucks Astarte's blood to take control over her familiar and give her a longer lifespan. Elsewhere at school, Kojo's friend Yaza talks to a girl disguised as a crow about Kojo truly moving ahead to be the fourth progenitor. Crow reveals that in West European Church, Kojo's name is synonymous with the fallen angel Lucifer. Kojo yet has a long and difficult road to travel. Natsuki encounters a survivor of the Black Death Emperor faction who intruded on the island for evil purposes. Being an attack mage, Natsuki defeats the intruder and leaves the rest of the investigation to the island guards. The following day at the school's Psyche Academy ball sports tournament, Yukina and Nagisa participate as the cheerleaders while Asagi and Kojo are paired up for the badminton tournament. Matsui with some guards approaches Makimura Yusuke of the Canoe Alchemist Industry Development Program and tries to check his lab for having illegal materials. Makimura objects and transforms into a non-registered demon. Natsuki orders Astartet and she defeats Makimura in no time. Natsuki then checks Makimura's research documents and learns that Makimura is studying Nalakuvera to decipher it. At school, when Kojo is out of the gymnasium, he gets attacked by two magical spirits, but Yukina saves him in time. Yukina explains the magic spirits were shikigami, mainly used to deliver a message to people. On the place where shikigami appeared, Kojo finds a message letter by Lord Dimitri Vatler of Ardiel. Ardiel is a pure-blooded vampire born on the first progenitor's line. Kojo reads the letter, which is a party invitation where he must bring his partner. Kojo, along with Yukina as his partner, appears at the party's location in Oceanus Gave Boat and meets Dimitri Vatler. Yukina also reunites with her old friend, Kurosaka Sayaka from the Lion King organization, now appointed as the observer of Lord Vatler. Vatler informs Kojo of Christoph Gardos. Christoph Gardos is a former soldier from the Warlord's Dominion, a terrorist, and the head of a radical group called the Black Death Emperor Faction. Black Death Emperor Faction is a discriminatory group that gives superiority to therianthropes and is sneaked into the island to revoke sacred treaty and take over the rule of the Warlord's domain from the first progenitor. However, to reach its goal, the organization is first going to spread havoc in the domain district to show its presence. Vatler then assigns Kojo and Yukina to find Gardos and eliminate him. After taking the assignment to assassinate Gardos, when Kojo and Yukina leave, Sayaka looks at Kojo with killing eyes since he is the dangerous fourth progenitor who Yukina has to observe at the stake of her life. To get information on Gardos, Yukina and Kojo visit Natsuki, but she refuses to tell them and instructs them not to look for Gardos anymore. According to Natsuki, Gardos is not dangerous anymore since the ancient weapon, Nalakuvera, Gardos has been looking for is not even usable. Nalakuvera is the weapon of gods and can destroy countless civilizations. Kano Alchemical Industries Corporation smuggled Nalakuvera in along with a stone tablet explaining how to use it, and Gardos wants to retrieve it to cause havoc. However, there is no need to worry because the researcher working to decipher it is in custody, and no one on the island has deciphered it yet. After instructing Kojo and Yukina not to interfere in this matter, Natsuki also warns Kojo about Vatler because Vatler has already devoured two high-ranking second-generation vampire elders and yet has to put his fangs into Kojo. To get more information on Nalakuvera, Kojo approaches Asagi and requests her to sneak into Island's data again. Asagi checks the data and gives the details of Nalakuvera to Kojo. Soon later, when Kojo is at school, Sayaka attacks him for sucking blood from his best friend Yukina's neck and tries to kill him. Sayaka's attack brings Kojo an injury, and he begins feeling immense power, which seems out of his control. Just then, Asagi appears and witnesses him in this state. Kojo's powers spread and make Asagi unconscious, but Yukina approaches the moment and stops Kojo. She reprimands Sayaka and Kojo for bringing a fight on the school roof and rushes to take Asagi to the nurse's office, where Astarte treats her. While Nagisa, Asagi, and Yukina are at the nurse's office, Gardos with his terrorist demons intrudes the school and approaches them. After seeing demons, Nagisa has a panic attack, and to control her, Yukina makes her unconscious. Gardos takes Nagisa, Yukina, and Asagi under his custody and intends to bring them out of the island. Yaze, with sound control and ability, tries to track Gardos, but he gets stopped by Vatler, who is only interfering with seeking the excitement. Gardos wants Asagi to decipher the control command of Nalakuvera and forces her to activate it for him. Kojo fights with sample Nalakuvera and Sayaka assists him. Sayaka, with her blade, cuts Nalakuvera's legs, and when she tries to cut its body, it remains resistant because of its repulsive field barrier. When Nalakuvera does not break and gets wild to attack them, Kojo summons his familiar. However, his familiar's strike on Nalakuvera brings an earthquake, resulting in him and Sayaka falling into the lower level of the broken ship. Asagi keeps on deciphering the control command in full possession. Meanwhile, Yukina sneaks out of the demon guard's custody and gets to know Gardo's secret. In order to defeat the first progenitor, Gardo prepares an army of Nalakuvera, which remain unbeatable in the battle. Gardo brings a fight with Yukina and tries to kill her, but Yukina manages to dodge his attacks and run to the upper surface of the boat. As Yukina has to fight bare-handed, Yaze, with air current manipulation, passes her Schneesturm. Yukina attacks Gardo with her Schneesturm and declares the fight off by cutting his hand. When Gardo seems to lose the battle, his demons bring unconscious Asagi and Nagisa. Deciphering completes and other Nalakuvera also arrives there on Gardo's command. underground when Kojo finds no way out to the surface. Sayaka offers her blood to Kojo, which helps him summon another familiar. Kojo sucks on Sayaka's blood and finally calls his familiar to turn the tables on Gardos. Natsuki saves Yukina from Gardos' demons, and Yukina leaves to help Kojo in the battle against Nalakuvera. Kojo and Sayaka make it to the surface with the help of Kojo's familiar. Gardos takes control of the master Nalakuvera and leads others to the fight where they seem indestructible. While Kojo and others are having difficulty overcoming them, Yukina, with the help of a command created by Asagi during the time she was deciphering Nalakuvera, causes them to self-destruct. After Gardos' defeat, when everything gets settled, the third leader of the Lion King organization, disguised as a middle school student, comes to see Vatler. She informs him of the establishment of the Warlord's domain embassy in the Demon District and appoints Vatler as an ambassador. After Sayaka leaves, she lets Kojo know she will visit the island this weekend to serve as a VIP bodyguard. Along with Yukina, Kojo follows his sister at school and meets her silver-haired classmate Kanon Kanase, who has been gathering stray cats in some nearby church wreckage. Vatler joins Natsuki and Yaze as they talk about the recovering victim from a recent aerial fight. Vatler asks Natsuki not to involve Kojo in this incident because when he confronts the victim, he cannot defeat her and die in the end. Vatler also warns them of potential impending threats to the city. After accompanying Natsuki and Astarte to a festival, Kojo and Yukina head to the tower, where they come across a conflict between the flying humanoids. They learn through the battle that the flyers are immune to their magic attacks. However, when the humanoid tries to attack Kojo, the second silver-haired flyer defends him and then viciously assaults the attacker. While doing so, her mask is shattered, revealing that she is Kanon. Kojo and Yukina go to Kanon's father's business, Magus Craft. While he is away, his secretary Beatrice sends Yukina and Kojo to a nearby research island that the business owns. Sayaka explores the cathedral ruins in search of Kanon Kanase and runs into Yaze. Nekeza and Asagi also approach the church in an effort to locate Kanon, and later with Asagi's aid, they all try to track down the locations of Kojo and Yukina. On the island at night, when Kojo wakes up and does not find Yukina, he goes to see her but gets shocked to learn that they aren't the only ones on the island. Kojo notices a young Kanon-like beauty with silver hair soaking in a moonlit lake. The island's beaches are being approached by a hovercraft. Kojo and Yukina are attacked by a group of robot warriors who disembark before being saved by Lafolia Riavine, the woman Kojo had seen taking a bath. The last few soldiers and their landing craft are destroyed by Kojo. They are greeted by Kensei Kanase, Kanon's adoptive father, along with Beatrice and Lo, as another hovercraft lands and waves a flag of truce. A brawl breaks out after they reveal their objectives and the fact that Kanon is being transformed into what Kensei refers to as an angel. Kanon's attack kills Kojo, but Kanon will control her emotions and experiences unpredictable mental instability and builds an ice tower to protect herself. Sayaka attacks and seizes possession of a Magus Craft container ship not far from the island, where Natsuki joins her. At the top of her own made barrier, Kanon is wrapped in ice and thrashes in agony. Yukina has built the Three, a magical refuge that abuts the Tower of Ice. Lafolia gets Yukina to awaken and feed Kojo so that a familiar in him can repair the damage from Kanon's attack and bring Kojo back to life. Lafolia is moved by this performance and offers herself to Kojo, giving him command over a third familiar. Kensei, who has been waiting with patience, is confronted by Kojo. After much argument, another brawl breaks out, this time including more angels that Beatrice surreptitiously cloned. Kojo uses the well-known Almisa Mercury to defeat Kanon for the first time. Together with Sasasaki, a middle school classmate, Natsuki enters into the world of working as a railway vice. The two witches of Ashdown, who are part of the library, a nefarious group, enter the island and cause havoc. After 4 years without speaking, Kojo's tomboyish childhood buddy Yuma Tokoyoi flies in for a visit. They take her to the Keystone Gate Tower with some of his friends so they may take in the view. Before the city's annual Halloween festival, odd things start to happen. Doorways trigger teleportation in people, and traffic accidents halt mobility across the metropolis. Astarte arrives at the tower to inform the occupants that Natsuki has disappeared, and before this happens, she ordered to defend Kanon. That night, Yuma kisses Kojo and gets unconscious. When he awakens, his own body is no longer there. Instead, he is in her body. Kojo visits Yukina's apartment while possessing Yuma's body and reveals his identity to her and the others. Communications and transportation on the island are disheveled. Mogwai makes a connection between the current spatial abnormality and a previous crisis known as the Dark Oath Grimoire incident, which was committed by the library 10 years ago while Asagi meets with colleague Tank Driver. Yukina comes to the conclusion that Yuma is responsible for everything. Up on the Keystone Gate Tower, the Ashdown witches are hiding out while holding a grimoire until Vatler interrupts them. In order to secure Vatler's inaction and make a deal with him over the fate of the criminals detained in the island's magical high-security jail, Yuma appears in Kojo's body. Asagi swiftly develops a satellite-based navigation system phone app and sends it to Kojo to allow Yukina and him to get to the tower to fight the witches. This app resolves the majority of the island's navigational problems. Vatler appears atop the tower and declares that the world's most heinous criminals will all be released at once before disappearing. The Ashdown Witch's familiar grabs Yukina and Kojo in quick succession. Sayaka and La Folia warp in and release them. Meantime, Yuma uses the grimoire to start transporting the prison to this plane, and Kensei steps forward, having provided the gateway. Yuma destroys the grimoire, which has served its purpose, and vanishes. After that, Kojo and Yukina leave through Kensei's portal to pursue her, and Sayaka and La Folia remain to fight and defeat Yuma and enter the prison entirely using Kojo's familiar. In the antechamber, she finds Natsuki, the prison's permanently dozing warden. La Blue, her spirit guardian, materializes and engages in combat with the jailer. Once everyone has returned to their original bodies and Natsuki has awakened, Yukina drives Sekiro past La Blue and into Yuma. Lomber, Aya's guardian spirit, unexpectedly enters while they talk about the future and uses its sword to slash both Yuma and Natsuki. The 12th familiar has taken over Nekisa's body, which it used to warn Vatler before returning to her mother, Mimori. Asagi travels the streets during a festival after waking up from her nap and becomes the protector of a young child who can only be Natsuki. Yuma's guardian spirit is taken from her by her mother, Aya Tokoyagi. She reveals to Kojo and Yukina how she cursed Natsuki, which partially freed the prison while holding up another grimoire. Behind her, the 6 worst prisoners arrive and explain that until they kill the witch, they will never be free of the prison system, and that if their strength or endurance dwindles too much, they will be reincarcerated without their consent. On one prisoner, who is afterwards given back, a demonstration is made. Sayaka dashes over with a hoveround, and they take the downed Yuma and run away. Asagi takes care of her new ward, a victim of Adia's curse who has lost her memory. Aya goes to the Psyche Academy's roof to carry out her operations. She breaks off communication with the library and daubs magical symbols all over the campus. Kojo and Sayaka are given an explanation of Nurse Witch Yukina's diagnosis and Mimori's treatment of Yuma. They are talking about Natsuki, who they think has the power to save Yuma, when they see Asagi and a young child on TV and decide to call her. Convict Kirika cuts off the call after realizing the girl is the young witch of the void. Together with Mogaway, the two make their way to the Keystone Gate's entrance, where the island guard and Astarte deliver the prisoner back to his cell. Convict Gigliola Gerardi shows in, seizes control of the island guard unit, captures Astarte, and poses a threat to Asagi and Natsuki. Vatler steps in and forcibly sends her back to her prison cell. Kojo arrives and negotiates with Vatler to give Natsuki to him, allegedly for safekeeping on his cruise ship. Miga Itagami, a prisoner, approaches Aya on the school roof and continues to describe the scenario. He doesn't intend to go after the witch personally. Later that night, a sleeping youngster who claims to be Natsu suddenly gets up from the bed and says that Natsuki will mysteriously recover in 2 hours. Vatler approaches Sayaka and Yukina on the dock outside while subtly speaking. Brew Dumblegraph, a prisoner, interrupts, and after a protracted struggle, Vatler rejails him. When convict Shutoridi shows up again, Sayaka reincarcerates her in the same manner. After finishing her preparations, Aya shows up, claims Itogami Island, and uses the Dark Oath Grimoire to put an end to all other supernatural powers. Yukina proves to be the exception, but when she attacks, she is teleported into a detention cell. Aya introduces Yukina to a dream world and tells her more of Natsuki's backstory. Yukina continues to dream of a happy school day with Sayaka and Kojo until waking up to confront Aya, who admits that her goal was to clear witches of all the wrongs that they are historically held responsible for. She wants Yukina to join her cause. Sayaka and Yuma let Kojo eat, which cures his wound and gives him back his power. Yuma, a clone of her mother, still possesses some magical power. Kojo, after interrupting Aya, frees Yukina from the cage. Aya again releases the worst criminals, who soon get defeated. Yukina breaks through Oya's magical barrier but is captured by tentacles. To steal Yukina's memories, Oya takes out her grimoire. Natsuki waits for this time and takes the book from Aya, regaining her lost powers and time. Despite her continued efforts, Yukina ultimately overcomes Aya. Convict Mega retrieves a prototype anti-demon lance from the museum and departs for an unspecified location. In search of an artifact known as Wiseman's Blood that Kensei Kanasa has in his custody, alchemist Ku Amatsuka visits him. Before their training camp on the island, the middle school students go shopping at the mall. Kojo, who is traveling with them, is attacked by Amatsuka, who wants to offer Kanon as a sacrifice. Amatsuka makes a comment regarding an occurrence that happened at Nina Adelard's monastery, which is also the wrecked church and cat sanctuary. The alchemist leaves as Yukina enters the conflict. Natsuki stops Kojo and Asagi as they approach the demolished church, but Asagi loses a priceless ear stud in the process. Kojo is guided by Yukina to a squalid area of the city where the island branch of the Lion Kings is hidden. While her owner, who appears as a cat familiar, meets the fourth progenitor, she surrenders her halberd. Amatsuka performs a rite in the demolished chapel using Wiseman's blood to drive his former mentor Nina out. She is able to escape even though it is successful. When Asagi goes back to look for her ear stud, she is hit and may be killed. Kojo and Yukina go in search for Asagi, but remain in sorrow to find him killed. Just then, Amatsuka appears and tries to bring a fight with Kojo and Yukina, but he ends up defeated. Kojo takes Asagi home. While taking a shower, Asagi notices a red stone in her chest. When she touches the stone, she turns into Nina Adelard, the alchemist. Nina promises Kojo to leave Asagi's body soon after defeating Amatsuka, who remains alive. Nina and Kojo approach the church ruins from where Nina restores herself from Wiseman's blood left there. When Yukina and Kanon are having difficulty dealing with Amatsuka, Kojo and Nina approach for their help. Amatsuka, with the assistance of Wiseman's golden skull, reforms Wiseman again. However, Kojo feeds Yukina's blood and summons his familiar to destroy Wiseman completely. The elimination of Wiseman frees Nina, but she still has to restore her normal size. After some time at school, Yukina begins acting weird and calling her friends different names. When Kojo suspects the girl is not Yukina, he inquires about her. But then the real Yukina appears and tries to pick a fight with a copy. In this struggle, a man-made dragon beast appears, which, if left unharmed, spreads destruction on the island. Yukina tries to defeat the dragon beast with her Schnistrom, but in combat, her weapon breaks. Just then, Yukina's copy comes up with a golden Schnistrom and attacks the beast, but it teleports away. Before Yukina's copy reveals her identity, Natsuki takes her responsibility, leaving Kojo to look after Yukina, who feels deep sorrow for her weapon's breakage. Later, Yukina receives a letter from Lion King organization calling her back to High God Forests. Dragon Beast appears again and tries to destroy the island, but Yukina, Kojo, and Yukina's copy, with their utmost effort, finally eliminates it. When everything gets back to normal, Sayaka informs Yukina that the order she received from Lion King organization is not a return order, but the order to have a medical checkup. After that, a portal opens and Yukina's copy, before disappearing inside it, calls Yukina Mom. The portal opens and allowed 20 years ahead in future, where the girl with Yukina's face is Reina. Reina is Yukina and Kojo's daughter and was sent by Asagi 20 years back to save the island from the dragon beast coming from the future. The past brings a happy future to Reina and everyone in the Empire of the Dawn.